listening to another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
That's right, everybody. It's another Football Wednesday. Tap Outs and Touchdowns. It's your guy, Bully Rye, alongside, as always, for football shows, Banker Bill. Bill, what's up, bud?
What's going on, man? Football Wednesday.
Football Wednesday is
not a ton of football happening right now.
Yeah, you know, it's that time of year where, you know, college football's over. You know, the NFL is winding down.
Yeah.
We can get excited about the UFL, but it's too early to get excited about the UFL.
A couple months away.
Yeah, it might, listen, for all intents and purposes, it might be a short show tonight. So we'll see how it goes.
Never happens, right? We say that, and then it's like, oh, an hour and 20 minutes later after we argued about something or other for 45 minutes. Yeah.
Well, listen, our Homer's Corner might get us right into that argument.
We already started to argue about it.
Yeah, we already started to argue before the show started. Just real quick, if you're watching the show with us live on Facebook.com/tapoutsandtouchdowns, we are on Instagram at Ryan Frick Comedy. I saw Will Small was in there for us for a quick second. We're also on the YouTube channel at Tap Outs and Touchdowns. So if you want to join us live, leave a comment wherever it is that you're watching. Join the conversation as we have we have some stuff to talk about, including as I'm trying to get this podcast shared to people that may or may not want to come and watch with us. Bill said he didn't have a Homer's Corner tonight, so
I really don't. There's just nothing important to me happening right now that Ryan won't take a crap on, like Florida Gators basketball or NASCAR starting soon.
Hold on a second. If anybody craps on anything that the other person wants to talk about, it's you crapping on my stuff. Like, oh, we're going to talk women's college basketball again, huh?
True.
So the second I take a shit, even if it's just a
women's
veil,
college basketball,
it doesn't matter, Bill.
Like parity in any sport ever.
If South Carolina was number 3 in the country in men's college basketball, and Florida was as bad as South Carolina was, not having a conference win, this, that, and the other, you would find a way to crap on college basketball. Oh, no, college basketball is garbage.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you would.
I don't. We can't, and we'll never know whether or not that's true because South Carolina is bad at every sport. So it's going to be tough to really, other than women's college basketball, and that has zero parity whatsoever. Number 3 absolutely clobbers. Number 4, it's terrible. So,
First of all, South Carolina is not bad at every sport. We just mentioned women's college basketball. We're number 2 in the country.
I said except for.
We've also got college baseball that we're generally better than average in college baseball. We beat Florida for a national championship 12 years ago, Bill. I've never forgotten about that. So
I think we've won since then, though. I'm pretty sure.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know. It wouldn't matter. I if I was the loser, I wouldn't care either. I really wouldn't.
Nobody cares about college baseball unless your team is winning, and that's a prime example of it here in the upstate of South Carolina. Clemson fans don't.
Then it gets interesting.
Clemson fans do not care about college baseball unless Clemson is beating South Carolina and or making it to the College World Series. They don't care otherwise. Most people are bandwagon college baseball fans. Most fans don't watch the majority of their baseball teams until it gets to, like you said, like the NCAA tournament and the College World Series and all that stuff. Real quick, shout out Podcast Minis in the chat with us tonight. Women's college basketball is doing great. It is. Thank you, Podcast Mini. Let's just not gloss over it because Bill's afraid that I would take a dump on NASCAR. But nevertheless, let's actually get to my Homer's Corner and talk some football because Bill said this is a topic that people don't care about, and I argue the fact that they wouldn't report on it if people didn't care about it. People care about coaching news because it gives their team hope for the upcoming season. And 2 teams in particular that I wanted to talk about in my Homer's Corner have some hope going into next season as the Detroit Lions, after their loss to the Washington Commanders in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, lose both offensive and defensive coordinators. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is headed to Chicago to be the new coach of the Chicago Bears. As far as Aaron Glenn goes, he was rumored for both the Saints and Jets job, and it looks like he will be the next head coach of the New York Jets. Listen, part of me wants to put the blame on the fact that they took too much attention away from their duties with the Detroit Lions to go get head coaching jobs. And that's why we saw such an abysmal defensive performance, and you could always, like I do, argue that injuries played a huge part in that. The offense put up 31 points, as Bill pointed out off the air a few days ago, but leave it for Jared Goff to have his worst game of the season against the Washington Commanders. So I don't want to place blame and point fingers at these two guys that have now gone on and gotten head coaching jobs, but apparently Ben Johnson has been trying to put together an incredible staff to go make Chicago a contender. I saw an interview before we went on the air where he said he was talking about the division being the best division in football and made a comment, you know what? I did enjoy beating Green Bay twice a year. So already throwing shots and throwing shade at the Green Bay Packers, considering the Bears finally broke like a 17-game losing streak against Green Bay in week 18 of the season. Bill, you say people don't care about coaching changes and stuff like that in the offseason. While I try to share the YouTube video over to X, make your case on why people don't care about coaching changes.
There's no reason to care. Because if you are making a coaching change, your team is a dumpster fire. And the likelihood, I actually have statistics, Ryan, if you want them, but the likelihood of your team not becoming a dumpster fire, especially if somebody actually did a assessment of retread coaches versus first-time new head coaches. It's like Ben Johnson, never been a coach before. Aaron Glenn, never been a head coach before. They did an assessment of their possibility, or like the percentage of success for those individuals. It's 38% for first-time head coaches, 38%. So if you hold hope for a team that has a first-time head coach, throw it in the garbage with the dumpster of a team you have right now, because it's a 1 in 3 chance that you're going to be any good. And that's not enough for me. So just wait and see. That's that. So I feel like this is completely pointless. You look at these players, you have no idea what makes a good coach. Nobody does.
So
you have teams that had success, what they thought with coaches that maybe interim coaches that came in. And I think there were 2 of them last year that got hired as an interim coach. Actually, no, it wouldn't have been 2 of them. It was just one. It was the Raiders coach. What was his name?
Antonio Pierce.
I wanted to say Gates, but he was a tight end. Pierce was the interim coach that got hired, fired after 1 season. Jared Mayo fired after 1 season. It's just, you don't know. Like, no, don't have hope. Just wait and see next year. You have a dumpster fire of a team. It doesn't matter who the coach is, and the likelihood of him getting fired in the next 3 years is high. So I mean,
listen, I don't want to say Bill makes valid points because I don't agree with anything he said. You look,
except for he came with facts. I hate facts.
Now, granted, it wasn't his first time as head coach, but Dan Quinn took over a Washington Commanders team that was picking in the top 5 in the draft. Luckily got their franchise quarterback, and now they're in the NFC Championship game in year 1.
He would be known as a retread coach because he was
course.
Already okay. They have a higher success rate.
Okay,
if you have a retread coach that's coming back for a second try, their success rate is higher. And Dan Quinn was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons and took them to the Super Bowl. And I don't know how you get to the Super Bowl with a team and get fired. I don't know how that happens. Doug Peterson had the same thing happen in Philly. There's obviously some kind of weird situation that goes on there. And Doug Peterson is fired again.
He didn't work out in Jacksonville. That's kind of the point.
Right, he's fired again, but he won a Super Bowl and then lost his job.
So that's kind of my point,
but Dan Quinn was a good coach before, and him being hired in Washington was, I thought, a good hire. He was also a good coach when he coached the defense for the Seattle Seahawks. I believe he might have been the defensive coach that won them Super Bowl. I'm not 100% sure about that. He also was a coach for the Florida Gators when they won the national championship. So Dan Quinn's been doing really good work as a defensive coach for a long time. He ended up being a pretty good head coach with Atlanta, and he's a good head coach at Washington. So that's not a surprise to me. And like I said, retread coaches have a higher percentage of success. And these people like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are likely to wash out in the next 2 years. So if you're going to hold hope for these teams like the Jets and the Bears, put it away for a while. You need to wait and see.
I'm not going to disagree with you on the Jets because the Jets have a lot more to deal with than head coach, right? Like More than likely, Aaron Rodgers is done. He was done before he went to the Jets.
Offensively, their defense is still very good. They still have a fantastic defensive lineup.
And they signed a defensive coach as their new head coach. And typically speaking, the defensive head coaches or the defensive coaches that go to head coaches don't tend to fare well when it comes to teams on offense, especially in the NFL. When it comes to Ben Johnson, I mean, both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson come from a team that, like you said, they took their chance on a first-time head coach in Dan Campbell. Nobody knew what he was going to be. I saw how the team played in year one, despite not getting a lot of wins. I saw how well they played. I saw how much they were progressing. I saw that team develop into what they are now. Now, as a Lions fan, the main reason I want to bring up these two guys.
I have a question.
Hold on.
To interrupt you. Not to interrupt you. I just want to ask you a question about Dan Campbell.
Okay.
He was a head coach prior to being a head coach in
I don't believe
Detroit.
So.
Yeah, he was. He was the interim head coach after Tony Sparano got fired in Miami.
He was interim, but
it doesn't matter. You're still a head coach.
I still don't consider that being. I don't consider interim head coach being like full-time head coach because you aren't guaranteed the position.
No, I'm not saying you're guaranteed the position, but he at least had to run the team. I think it was for maybe 7 games at the end of the season, 6, 7 games at the end of that season when Sparano got fired, and he did turn the team around at that time. The team was playing better, and they actually talked about the possibility of him being hired on as the permanent head coach.
But did they?
Happen.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. I think Cam Cameron ended up getting that job, and they went 1-15. But no, it was prior to that. It was the one after that.
No.
So, it doesn't matter. The point is he had done the position before, so I'm not sure how they consider that.
It wasn't. That's like your boss gets fired and they ask you to fill in for a few weeks until they can.
But you're learning on the job at that point. So he had seen what it took to be a head coach.
How much can you learn in 6 weeks as an interim head coach?
Well, I think he was obviously high enough on the team. Maybe I don't know what his position was when he. I honestly don't remember what his position was, even as a Dolphins fan, what Dan Campbell was doing on the Dolphins staff under Tony Sparano. But obviously he was in a position where the owner said, hey, you're the guy, or the GM said, you're the guy, you're going to lead this team for the remainder of the season. Well, I still think there's a lot of learning on the job stuff that happens there. You have to do head coach things when you're the head coach of the football team. Not
so much that if that was the case, then they would have hired him and he wouldn't have gone to Detroit. Nevertheless.
No. I think they didn't feel like he was seasoned enough yet to be this. And you're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, but he had been in that position prior to being in Detroit. So he would be considered a success, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he'd seen it before.
Part of the reason why I wanted to bring up Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson leaving is because no team has ever made it to the Super Bowl the year after losing both coordinators. We saw it happen in Philadelphia. You and I at the time said that Philadelphia's window had closed. But then they go out. Then they go out and sign Saquon Barkley, and they kick the door in. They don't need a window,
That changed the team.
He Kool-Aid Man's his way through the wall. So
they actually did 2 things. They did 2 things. It wasn't just Saquon Barkley. They also hired Tony Sparano, and that defense went from junk to number 1 in the league.
Yeah. So as far as a Lions fan go, to be part of my Homer's Corner, you talked about Antonio Pierce in Vegas. I would love to see Antonio Pierce come on Detroit as a defensive coordinator, because that's what he was. He was a defensive coach in Vegas before he got promoted. And not to mention the fact that when he got fired, there was one Max Crosby that was not too happy about the fact that Pierce got fired after 1 season. There's potential for Bill Belichick to take that head coaching job. Rumors about Deion Sanders being interested in that head coaching job. And I think that if the Lions bring over Antonio Pierce, I think there's a shot that you might be able to trade for a Max Crosby. And really be able to bolster that defensive line and add depth, considering you can have Hutchinson and Crosby on each side of the ball, and really add some depth for in the case of injuries, like what with the Lions, I think started 30 starters on defense throughout the season. But when I say coaching changes, it gives hope. I'm not saying that Chicago Bears fans should expect to win the Super Bowl, compete even for the NFC North next season, because the NFC North isn't getting any worse, right? So the problem with not having hope is the idea that if you don't have hope with a guy like Ben Johnson, who under his tutelage led the league in points scored this season, has been in the top 10 in offense in the last 3 years with Detroit. So at least Chicago's got something to look forward to. Teams that sort of struggle with that hope. And to an extent, to go back to being optimistic, the Patriots have to be optimistic. You only give Jared Mayo 1 year, Now you got Mike Vrabel, who proved to be able to be successful in Tennessee. They think they have their franchise quarterback in Drake May, who showed signs of being a pretty good quarterback this season. But when you look at teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I talked about this on the Cat Cave this week with Shannon Smith, we talked about the fact that I think the Jaguars are in a terrible situation because all signs pointed to the fact that Ben Johnson wanted to go and coach the Jacksonville Jaguars, but ultimately elected to go to Chicago instead. There was I believe, the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers withdrew his name from head coaching consideration for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then earlier today, it was announced that Shad Khan had fired the general manager in Jacksonville. So, like, you talk about teams like, and that's part of, I think, why Ben Johnson didn't take the job. It's why the other guy took his name out of consideration. And, like, I don't understand. Like, that's the kind of team, like, okay, why didn't we do this weeks ago? Or like Vegas, like, everybody was starting to interview coaches, and then Vegas decided like a week or two later to fire Antonio Pierce after interviews were already going on. So, like, there are teams that should be able to find hope in the fact that, okay, we found our guy. We're like a couple pieces away from being competitive. So I can be hopeful in the fact that, like, we thought this guy was the problem, Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or Mike Vrabel or et cetera, is going to come in and they might be able to make a difference and impact immediately. So, like, I don't know. The idea that, like, you shouldn't have hope because you're getting a new head coach is just, that is, I don't know, spoken from somebody who doesn't typically have to worry about a lot of coaching turnover. Like, I mean, as a Florida fan, you had Steve Spurrier for a good long period of time, won you some championships. You had Urban Meyer, who was winning you championships. And, like, you weren't necessarily concerned about the next guy up because you had, what was it, Ron Moore? Not Ron Morris.
Ron Zook.
Ron Zook, you weren't really happy about. And then you get Urban Meyer, like, okay, maybe. So, like,
Will Muschamp.
I don't know. Well, yeah, Will Muschamp, kind of, South Carolina fans could, there are guys where you cannot get excited about taking over as head coach. And I think that at least teams like right now, the Chicago Bears have a lot of hope, considering that their offenses have always been so bad. Ben Johnson has shown to be able to at least coordinate a really good offense with the Detroit Lions. And they can be hopeful. Like, again, it's not going to happen because Caleb Williams isn't the guy. They just don't know that yet. They thought Justin Fields was the guy. They didn't know then what we know now, that he's not the guy. So I don't know. I wanted to bring it up in a way of saying, like, this doesn't give me hope as a Lions fan for next season for Detroit. I think there's a chance they make the playoffs, but I think they might take a step back. They're not going to win 15 games next season. But I'm curious to see who they bring in. But I don't know. Like, I got kind of heated when you were like, oh, nobody cares. Why are we talking about coaching changes? There's nothing else to talk about. I'm like, people care because they want to see their team do better.
I don't think coaching changes are all that interesting because of the rate of failure.
If you're watching the show live or if you're listening to the show later on, I believe you can leave comments on Spotify or whatever it is that you watch listen to your podcasts. Or if you watch the show later on Facebook, leave a comment. Go to social media at Tapouts and TDs on Facebook and leave a comment somewhere. Post to us, whatever the case is. Let us know if coaching changes are something that interests you when it comes to the world of football. Nevertheless, like you said,
leave it to the people.
I want to know. I might create a poll. This might be the first poll that we've ever done to get some engagement from social media.
For me, I feel like I've watched as a Dolphins and a Gators fan, and just as in general fan of the NFL, I've watched people. I have friends, obviously you know, that have had coaching changes where Dan Campbell, you didn't know right away, right? And then he shows all of a sudden starts showing improvement. You got things like Brian Daboll. I wanted Brian Daboll hired as a Miami Dolphins coach, and he really hasn't shown anything in New York. So I just feel like there's you see, and that's my dad's team, right? And I see so many people get excited, and then within a year or two, they're just horribly disappointed. And that wasn't the issue with the team, if that makes sense. They shouldn't have fired the previous coach because he wasn't the problem. I mean, in New York, it was Daniel Jones was just awful, right? In New York, with the Jets, I have no idea what's wrong with that team. But I don't think they should have fired Robert Saleh, honestly. Anyway, the point is, I've seen a lot of people get really excited and have a lot of hope, as you say, and it has to be tempered. You have to, bring it down about 2 out of 3 notches. Just okay, yes, it's going to look different next year, but does that mean it's going to be any good? There's a 1 in 3 chance that it might be.
Be on the lookout for the polls. I'm posting polls tonight, and be on the lookout for the polls. And please engage in the polls because I want to know. I want to know if you care about the coaching changes in the world of college or pro football, for that matter. Or if you're watching the show live, you can leave comments and we can read them on the air. But let's move on here since Bill doesn't have a Homer's Corner other than just to crap all over mine. Let's briefly talk about college football because I haven't been less interested in a college football national championship game in quite some time.
Well, let's start with what'd you think? You're saying it. You weren't interested, and we talked about it prior to, and you and I had the conversation about not being interested, and I kind of tried to talk you into it, like, hey, this is pretty cool. It's the end of the college football season, and we've gone through the playoffs this time. So I know you watched the game.
Yeah.
So what'd you think?
I mean, to be clear, Ohio State, if you've been living under a rock, Ohio State beats Notre Dame 34-23 to win the 2025 College Football National Championship, first team to win a 12-team playoff. I mean, listen, like I said, I haven't been this interested since I think Auburn played Oregon in the national championship a few years ago.
Ooh, that was, yeah.
Like, I didn't care about that game. Andrew's in the chat. This is a friend of mine from my other life out of podcasting. He says a lot of time head coaches are the first to go. A lot of the time teams just stink. Not wrong there. Yeah. I was disinterested watching the game. Like I have 2 TVs in my living room because I'm a single guy and I do what I want. And maybe I never get married again. That's fine. No big deal. I don't care. But I've got 2 TVs. And so I've got my gaming set up on my big TV and just like a Fire Stick on the other TV. So like football season, I can watch 2 games at once, whatever the case is. Like at halftime, the game felt like it was out of reach. So I cut the game on the small TV and started playing PlayStation on Monday night. Yeah, I mean, the score looks a lot closer than the game actually was. Notre Dame made it interesting down the stretch. I do want to mention here and now that nothing makes me happier than former Gamecock, I want to say Derek Jeter, Mitch Jeter, in a spot where he could have made that a 10-point game, doink like a 20-yard field goal. Like just no reason why this kid who wanted to leave South Carolina to go play for a winner, you miss a kick on the biggest stage of them all. It's like losing your only ever main event opportunity at WrestleMania. Congratulations, bud. You played yourself. So that made me very happy.
Salty.
I was interested. Oh, very salty. Listen, they don't call me high cholesterol Ryan for no reason. I'm kidding.
I don't blame you. I was rooting against Trevor Etienne when he was fumbling in Georgia. I was enjoying that. So I don't blame you. I feel the same way.
Yeah, Trey Tolles chimes in. The second half at least got interesting. Like I said, Notre Dame made it interesting in the second half, but it never really felt like they had a shot to come back and win. I mean, you bring the game within 8 points, and then Ohio State hits a big run play. Like they make it a 1-score game within 4 minutes left. Or just above.
Is that pass play that killed?
Was the pass play that went like 60 yards, whatever the case is?
Yeah,
kicked the field goal. Like again. The game I never felt like Notre Dame had an actual chance to win. So like I was disinterested before the game started and I became less interested as the game went on. I'm like, okay, well, I guess Monday Night Raw's on Netflix. Like they at least I can see what storylines are going on there if I really wanted to find something I was interested in watching. So I genuinely, part of me didn't care because I had no interest in either team. Ohio State was obviously the best team in the country. That's why they won the national championship. But Notre Dame was getting blown out at one point, and I saw somebody on social media say, okay, can we finally force Notre Dame to join a conference? Like, how many times do we have to see them get blown out on the national stage because they don't have to play anybody through the regular season? And I've been saying that all year. Now, granted, they won some games down the stretch and, again, made this game interesting, but, like, I didn't care. The game, it wasn't fun to watch for me. Like it didn't draw me in. Like, how did you feel about it, Bill?
Honestly, I felt it did fall a little bit flat when it was 31-7. Like I actually thought to myself, like, this is terrible. This is really, really bad. And a bad look for college football. This just didn't work out. And I think it's the seeding thing that kind of screwed it all up. But And a couple other factors. I mean, Carson Beck getting hurt in the SEC championship game didn't help anything, but I kind of felt like it fell a little flat. I have two other issues though. Yes, the seeding was broken, and Notre Dame, while I believe they deserve to be in there because they did beat Penn State, it's still the playoff, right? You still have to win the games and beat the teams that beat the other teams, that kind of thing. But they didn't play well. And to be down 31-7, but they did make a run, and that made it fun. Like that, once they started making the run, once they got into the second half, and it's like, okay, maybe they can come back from this. Maybe Ohio State will fall apart. Maybe Ryan Day really can't win the big game. You started to think those things. You're watching Notre Dame make a run, and then that one pass play, you went, well, that was it. It's over now. What I do have an issue with, and Todd Klatt already pointed it out on his podcast, so he got in before me, but having it on Monday night and having this run into the NFL playoff schedule, and we're all digging the NFL playoffs right now and excited about who's going to play in the Super Bowl. It's scheduled really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
It's scheduled really poorly. And he talked about it on there that maybe they need to move the regular season start up, move it earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to get rid of conference championship games so we can just go right into the playoffs, that kind of thing. But having it this late in the season and this close to the conference championship games for the NFL, where everybody's already knows what those are, and they're excited about the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. I feel like college football has to have their day. We have Super Bowl Sunday, and it's a 1 week break, and we get Super Bowl Sunday, and we're all excited about, the Super Bowl. And we're all scheduling parties. How many parties do you know for the college national championship game? None.
Who can have a party? Who can have a party on a Monday?
Right. In my opinion, what is one thing we always complain about with the Super Bowl?
They started
needs
too
to
late.
Be on
a Saturday. It needs to be
a
on Saturday.
So
or make the Monday after Super Bowl a national holiday.
College football needs to make this happen. They need to make this happen. And maybe they need to make it happen the week before the Super Bowl. There's an open week there where they play the Pro Bowl games, and nobody really, they're funny, they're goofy, that's whatever, but nobody cares about that. What if you need to drop it on a Saturday where people can get excited about the game and schedule to have their friends over to watch the game, and to have it on a Monday night? And granted, we had that day off. That's fine. But we had to get up on Tuesday. Some people had the day off, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And then or Inauguration Day, whichever one you're looking forward to. But anyway, my point is I think they need to have their own day. I think they need to figure out how to get this done so that the college football national championship ends on its own day. Make it a very special game. Make everybody want to watch it. To have it on a random Monday night after, we're really deep into the NFL playoffs, it just fell flat for me. And I was looking forward to being more excited. And I was excited about the fact that I feel like I've been saying Ohio State was the best team in college football way before anybody else was. I think I said that after the Oregon game, the first one. And I wanted to see them win the college football national championship for that reason. But the game was just like blah. Like the game's on. I might as well turn it on. It wasn't like you were excited about it.
Yeah. So, to your point, I'll agree that it needs to get moved to a Saturday. Even Andrew jumped in the chat again and said that the championship game on Pro Bowl weekend. I'm not opposed to that. I think if you move the season up a week, as much as we complain about cold weather games, that you're getting really into the heat, especially for like teams that play football in the South. It's very, very brutally hot in that time of the year. But even if you pushed it back a week, that's where you get the national championship game during Pro Bowl weekend, which is, again, it's going to probably draw more eyes than your skills competition for the Pro Bowl. The conference championships, I think we've talked at length on this show about the fact that we don't think they're necessary anymore. It doesn't, all it can do is hurt you if you lose your conference championship bad enough.
Or help you get into the playoff like Clemson did. Yeah.
So the problem is that these conferences and these networks make way too much money off of conference championship games. So they're not going away.
True.
But I'm with you. I think there's a way to make it work out. I've said it for years that there's no reason why. And the college basketball national championship game falls on a weeknight. Like, I think it's a Monday night there for them too. Like, there's no point why you can't do it on a Saturday night. Like,
and I have to admit it, Ryan. I've missed the college. We all love March Madness, right? We watch a ton of games. I know people that take time off during that time to watch the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the first weekend of college basketball.
The number one time of year for vasectomies. It's a true story. People.
Okay, I actually know that is a fact.
Yeah, but people will elect to have a vasectomy that week because all they're told to do is sit home and ice your balls. And what better to do to ice your balls than watching the NCAA tournament.
But with that being said, I will admit that I have missed the college basketball national championship. I have.
Yeah.
Because I forget, it's Monday night. I forget. Oh, it's right. It's on right now. And I don't care. I don't know what is it about a Monday night. It's like, I don't care. It's not sports day.
When they change it after next season, when they go to 16 teams, they need to find a way when they create the college football schedule to put the college football national championship on the Saturday night. There's no reason why they can't do it. I don't care if you're competing with the Pro Bowl games. I don't care what you're going up against. Pedro says, taking notes on the vasectomy. You're welcome, bud.
Ice your marbles. You gotta ice the marbles on that day.
You have no marbles. You have no marbles. Sorry. That's a shout out to Major League and our
Serrano
Bob
moment
Uecker.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like the game fell flat. I wasn't interested, just a bit outside of my interest zone there. But yeah, like I said, the game is what it is. Congratulations to Ohio State, I guess. I'm looking forward to next college football season so we can complain more. And we're, at least as an SEC fan, you're playing the same teams. Just switch the home and away. And we'll see how next season goes. But enjoy your last year of the 12-team playoff because it will be expanding the following year. And that is when they need to make a conscious effort to move it to Saturday nights because we've been saying for years that they need to move to Saturday night. And how much
fun would it be? How much fun would that be to have a game like that on a Saturday night where we all get together and kind of make like a New Year's festivities thing out of it? It would be so much fun. Like we don't even have that opportunity with the Super Bowl because unless you're going to take Monday off, which most people don't want to use a PTO day after the Super Bowl, especially if your team's not playing. But and we say it every year. I wish this game. It would be so much fun if this game was on Saturday. And they're never going to do it. So college football should do it. Pedro
says Ohio State did it for the millions and millions of dollars they spent. The $20 million in NIL. That's a reference of
I know what it is.
Rock Johnson, you bum. Educate yourself, Bill.
No.
They did a good job. Right.
Congrats to Ohio State. I'm happy for Ohio State. I said a long time ago, the best team of college football. They proved it. Thank you, Ohio State, for doing that. And we don't have to listen to people say Ryan Day can't win the big game anymore.
Go blue. That's what I'm going to say about that. All right, let's go over to the NFL talk.
Doesn't matter.
The divisional round has taken place and has come and gone, and we have an NFC championship game set. Let's start off in the NFC, obviously. As the Eagles beat the Rams 28-22, the Commanders go on the road and knock off the Lions 45-31. It is an NFC East showdown for the NFC championship game this Sunday, and it now officially makes it that the longest wait for an NFC East team to make the NFC Championship game belongs to the Dallas Cowboys. Every single team in that division has made it to the conference championship game since the last time the Cowboys have done it. Let's start off Rams and Eagles. If we want to talk about pick'em last week, let's just go ahead and get out of the way. Bill went undefeated again. I went 1-4. I went against everybody in the NFL that Bill did. Hold on real quick. Sean McElveen wants to chime in. How about the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday? Mega party. Ooh. That might be too much.
Yeah, I think the Thunder would be stolen because of the Super Bowl. Too many eyes are on the Super Bowl that weekend.
Yeah. Thoughts on the Rams? The Rams kind of came out of nowhere. They got hot at the right time. They had their chances to win this game. The weather turned in the second half. It started snowing. It made it hard for both teams. But Saquon doing Saquon things and making a case as to why I think he should be the co-MVP this season. I don't know how to approach this. Obviously, we talked about it when we were talking about coaching changes. The window was clearly reopened for the Philadelphia Eagles. What are the Rams looking at? I mean, we thought they were sort of done when Aaron Donald retired. And I mean, Matt Stafford's getting up there. Cooper Kupp's getting up there, but they've got some young guys in Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua on that offense. What are your thoughts seeing the Rams come this close to what would have been hosting the NFC Championship game?
You know what? They played really well going down the stretch. I think we talked about that. We saw the record going down the stretch after starting. I think it was 2-2. I don't know, man. I don't know what to expect with that team. I will admit I don't know the Rams that well, but like you said, there's still offensive weapons there. I feel like they play over their head, to be honest. You look at the weapons they have. What do they do it with two good wide receivers, a decent tight end, running backs that really don't make you really excited, right?
Mhm.
And Matt Stafford, like that's their offense, and they seem to want to win with offense. What they did do is pick draft picks really well last season. They had two fantastic rookie defensive linemen that made a huge difference on their defensive line after Aaron Donald retired. I think it wasn't I forget the number 55. What's his name? The one that he hurt himself in the game was on the bike. But he led all rookie linemen and I think he had 8.5 sacks this year. So they did a great job drafting. I mean, those are the kind of things that will keep your window open is if you can do, make good draft picks and continue to do that and put talent on the team. But I don't see them winning a Super Bowl next year. I don't think their window's open, but I think they'll still be relevant. It's a tough division they play in. There's good teams in that division, but I think they'll still be relevant next year.
His name was Brandon Fisk, according to Pedro.
Thank you. Yes.
He also mentioned
and he had the other one from Florida State, and I can't remember his name either because I don't care, honestly.
He also mentioned that Jalen Carter saved the Eagles with that sack late in that game, and he did because Matt Stafford was doing Matt Stafford things throughout that game. So kudos to the Eagles for making another NFC Championship game. Listen, I would normally be the one. Let's talk all Lions for the rest of the show, but we don't have to talk a lot about this game. They lose another cornerback in the first quarter of this game with a broken arm. Jared Verse is the player that we were talking about a second ago.
Yeah, I don't want to admit that Florida State was ever good because they're not going to be for like the next 10 years. So we're good.
Yeah, let's see. Pedro coming in hot. Yep, we got it. Jared Verse.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. I knew who they were. I didn't remember the names, but yeah, I knew they were Florida State. Well, I knew they were Florida State players. I didn't want to mention that.
Again, 31 points is a lot of points scored, but a lot of offensive mishaps cost the Lions offensively. Obviously, they're driving down the field. Jared Goff has a costly fumble that turns into points for Washington. Throws an interception on a chance to make the game close right before halftime. They try another trick play, and Jameson Williams throws an interception. This winds up being a 14-point game. The game's actually, words are hard, a lot farther away than this score was. I mean, Washington dominated this game from start to finish. Jaden Daniels, we've talked about since the draft that he's the best quarterback coming out of this draft. Do you see a chance? We're going to pick the game later. Is there a chance that Jaden Daniels can be like the first rookie quarterback that in our recent memory to play for a Super Bowl?
Is there a chance?
Yeah. I mean, they're playing. Yeah.
Of course. That's why they play the games.
He's play to win the game.
That's right, man. Listen, his stats in the game against Detroit, and Detroit, look, they had a medical
mash unit on defense.
Yeah, it's terrible. But his stats against Detroit, 122.9 passer rating. His QBR is 91.8. That's ridiculous. Yeah. That's ridiculous. But like you said, a lot of injuries. The Eagles don't have that issue. Nope. And they've played twice this season.
And they're 1-1.
I know they're 1-1.
The rubber match.
They're 1-1 on each other's field, and it's the wrong field to be playing on for Jaden Daniels. However, man, we knew it. Jaden Daniels, best quarterback coming out of college last year.
Pedro chimes in. Washington lost Sam Cosmi. I think this is how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah. Offensive line.
It's going to make the NFC Championship game interesting going against the Eagles front.
Yeah.
So its championship game is set. It's an NFC East showdown for the NFC Championship. Let's go over to the AFC as the Bills knock off the Ravens 27-25, and the Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. It's another rematch between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes for the AFC Championship game. The Bills bested the Chiefs in the regular season. There's an infamous video of Patrick Mahomes sort of halfway congratulating Josh Allen as he walks away with an expletive-filled rant about how we suck, and it was just all really, really poor taste. Let's start off with the Bills over the Ravens. The Ravens were a Mark Andrews 2-point conversion catch away from potentially creating overtime. We talked about windows being open and closed. I know you don't like Lamar Jackson. What does the future? I mean, do you ever see Lamar Jackson winning a Super Bowl, even playing for a Super Bowl in Baltimore?
This wasn't Lamar's fault.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
In fairness, it normally isn't.
I know. Transcendent players transcend. So no. He's got to. He's too good if you put the right team around him. Come on. We talked about him not having. You talked about Zay Jones, but is it Zay Jones? That his name?
Yeah, Zay Jones was hurt. A Pro Bowl wide receiver.
You talked about him. I don't think he has great receivers. I don't think he has a ton of talent around him. I really don't. Derrick Henry. Like that's the guy that scares you on that offense, right? And Lamar Jackson got way better because a lot of teams are stacking the box because of Derrick Henry.
Mhm.
Derrick Henry gets old at any point. You thought that was happening 2 years ago. It still hasn't happened yet. Lamar Jackson's going to slip back to MVP status. I mean, he's still fantastic, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bet against the guy. The guy played a great game. Josh Allen is fantastic, and until they can get that, I mean, he's even lost the games when he's been at home. We saw it last year. So I don't know. What is he, 3-5 in the playoffs? He just doesn't come through in the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. And it wasn't his fault. But
I'll tell you what.
I think he's too good. He's too good, and I'll admit it this year. I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson fan, but I will admit it this year. He passed very well this year. I always said that he was a good running quarterback. He was a decent passer. This year, he was a good passer. So I think that, yes, he could play for a Super Bowl at some point or play for a championship. But you got to get the players around him. They're just not there yet.
We talked earlier in the season when we were talking a lot of fantasy football that Mark Andrews sort of had a disappearing act. I think Mark Andrews dropped his shot to be a Baltimore Raven. I don't know if they bring him back next season.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. That's unfortunate, man. That one play like that or one game defines your legacy with a team.
Who was that wide receiver that dropped that pass from God? I can see it happen.
Got to give me more than that.
They were an AFC Championship game, Ravens, I think, against the Steelers. And you had a wide receiver drop like a really, really important pass. And he was never the same. And he played for Baltimore. I'm going to Google it while I let you talk about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But yeah, like I said, unfortunate for the Ravens. My friend Sean, big Ravens fan. I was rooting for Baltimore to beat Buffalo because I thought that they would have had a better chance against the Chiefs. Chiefs only put up 23 points. It's the first game that their entire offense has played since Christmas Day. They had all their weapons back, but they were only able to muster 23 points. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs? Or let's talk about the Texans. The Texans made it another year where they won a playoff game and made it to this divisional round. What do the Texans need to take that next step as far as a program to contend for a Super Bowl?
That's a great question. They just need a little bit more. They have the defense for the Chiefs is very good. I don't know. The Texans just need a little bit more. I feel like they just didn't have enough offensive ability in this game. I mean, I like to build teams from the inside out. The offensive line generally to be the best unit on the team. And I think that we're seeing a lot of these teams that have good offensive lines and that the offensive lines that stay healthy, they stay in the playoffs. And that's going to be a bad thing for Washington. But I don't know, man. The Texans, I think, surprised all of us. I don't think we all expected them to be there or even play with the Chiefs, or maybe I did. But they actually were worse than I thought. So I don't know what they can do. I don't know. I mean, Joe Mixon, running back, isn't he a little old? Maybe we want to do a little better there. Other than that, I mean, they have wide receivers. They're good. They're decent. They're decent. 23 holding the Chiefs to 23 points isn't bad. Your offense has to be better.
Yeah, I will let you know this. The wide receiver I was thinking about. This might put you in the Wayback Machine. Lee Evans dropped a game-winning touchdown back in like 2012, 2011, somewhere around there for the Ravens. And Lee Evans was never. He started his career in Buffalo. Either was traded or signed with Baltimore free agency. A speedy receiver. He was one of those guys that people wanted in fantasy football. He drops that pass for the Ravens, and he was never the same player. There's a reason why you don't remember his name. So look that up after the show because it felt like that for me for Mark Andrews as far as not being the same player again. Let's talk.
I don't think I knew this yet, right? Did you know that the Chiefs sacked C.J. Stroud 8 times?
Yeah.
Yeah, so offensive line. I got it without even seeing that statistic. There's your statistic. That's why they lost.
Well, let's talk about getting after the quarterback because this past weekend we saw Jared Goff throw an interception that was returned for a touchdown in which he got laid out and almost concussed. That rule specialist got on the broadcast and said it should have been a penalty, but they didn't call it back. Meanwhile, we're seeing Patrick Mahomes slide late, flop out of bounds a la LeBron James. So, Bill, I posed the question, is there an officiating problem in the NFL? Like, I know we talk about it, we complain about it all the time, but they're like, we talked about this on the Cat Cave. Whereas if Cam Newton used to complain about not getting calls about getting hit a lot, and he would slide early, he would still get hit, and he wouldn't get the flags. If you reverse their roles and you put Patrick Mahomes in the shoes of Cam Newton, I hate to say this, I think that it would wind up the same way. Like it's that Patrick Mahomes is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. And I think if the college football and the NFL can rule out, can outlaw the fake slide like Kenny Pickett did when he was at Pittsburgh, then they need to stop protecting quarterbacks who decide to slide late and then get hit. They need to start doing something as far as unsportsmanlike conduct when you get breathed on and you flop on the sidelines to draw a penalty. Like, what is there a problem with officiating in the NFL that needs to be addressed?
Yes, and has been for many, 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 many years. But this one's a little different, I think. We've had issues with, missed calls, blown calls, whatever. But this one's a little different, and I think you're going to see it right. It's going to be firsthand this week because you're going to watch two quarterbacks that play very similar but have very different builds, with Josh Allen being an absolute monster of a human being and Patrick Mahomes being considerably smaller. And you're going to see them play fairly similar, where they're both going to try to be athletic and try to make moves and slide, and Josh Allen's going to take hits. And when Mahomes gets hit, you're going to see them throw flags. That's what happens. Where there's smoke, there's fire, Ryan. People have been talking about this for years. And so why do we keep talking about it? And we see it again. People say, hey, watch for this. And then it happens. There's a problem. And we go back and we watch the replay and we're like, hey, that's not a penalty. There was nothing they could do about that. They were just trying to tackle the guy and he went down way too late. Oh, 15 yards. But you watch Josh Allen do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. So these teams aren't playing the Chiefs any different. They're playing the game the exact same way. These guys aren't thinking about how they're tackling or when they're tackling or anything like that. Yeah, they might actually be holding off a little bit. But when he goes down that late and they go, oh, there's no way they can throw a flag here, I'm going to hit it, whatever. It
takes off. Yeah, I mean, I think back to the Jared Goff hit, and I know we're talking college and pros, but I've complained about it enough on this show. The hit that got put on the quarterback for LSU by Kyle Kennard that called back an interception return for a touchdown that effectively altered the outcome of that game, South Carolina LSU.
Season.
It altered the outcome of the season. It happened to Jared Goff, no flag was called. It was called in a college game, wasn't called in an NFL game. And then you're seeing these ticky-tack fouls against Patrick Mahomes. I understand that, like, you want to protect these guys, but you have to do it across the board. Pedro jumps in. Travis Kelce refused to comment on it on the New Heights pod. It's really hard not to think it's favoritism. Of course it is. There's a joke going around that they started stitching the three-peat banner since the end of last season. Like, it's like when you talk about, you make jokes about the fact that PJ Stephen was in here. He would say wrestling is real, football is fake. It's all scripted. There's times like this where you sort of understand the gripe where people might think that, is the NFL scripted? Is it entertainment? Are the outcomes predetermined? Because at the end of the day, the NFL is a entertainment company. It's frustrating as a fan that you see time and time again an issue, a problem that needs to be addressed that never gets addressed. And before it's and until it's too late, and then by then Patrick Mahomes has won 6 Super Bowls and now he's considered the GOAT. Like, he's a great quarterback. He's had a terrible season, in my opinion. And I'm at least rooting for Buffalo to win this weekend because I don't want there to be a prop bet on the Super Bowl how many times we see Taylor Swift. And I don't want Kansas City to raise a three-peat banner because I think they get too much favoritism from officiating.
And what's terrible about it, Ryan, is every time they get these 15-yard penalties, that's 1/5 of the drive they need to get to score a touchdown.
Yep. Yeah.
If you have a touchback, you're at the 25. You go, it's 75 yards, and as soon as you get 15 yards, it's 1/5. So it's a huge, huge penalty when these people hit Mahomes after he's slid into their ankles, and they put their head down trying to tackle him. But yeah, it's a terrible thing. Like I said, watch it this weekend. Josh Allen's going to get hit. and see if they throw a flag.
I agree. All right. We've reached that part of the show. I told you it might be a quick one tonight. We are at Podcast Pick'em. Last week, again, I mentioned a brief point. Bill went 5-0 again last week.
What was the last game I lost? Now, what is it?
The last game you got wrong was the Seahawks Rams in Week 18.
And I picked the Rams, right?
You picked the Seahawks.
They didn't cover.
The Seahawks were 6.5-point favorites, and they didn't cover.
They didn't cover.
For that matter, we both took the Bengals over the Steelers, and that didn't happen either. So,
all right, fair.
If you look at the standings, Banker Bill is got a huge lead on me now, 61-35. For the first time all season, I have fallen below 500 at 47-48 after my abysmal.
You still need to go back. You say you write them down. You still need to go back to like week 6 and see what my record was.
Oh yeah, you got to remind me to do that, man. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm out here slinging. I'm out here slinging nuts like the best of them, man.
You said I'm single. I do what I want. That was like a half hour ago.
Yeah, I know. And if I don't get a reminder that I need to go back and check this, then I'm going to do what I want and not do
what I want.
And I'm out here slinging nuts, selling pistachios for Super Bowl season.
What is with you tonight? You're talking about men's balls and nuts on the same show. Like what?
Listen, I promise you I didn't watch I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, but it's balls and wieners all the way, I guess, tonight.
That's gracious.
It's the wavelength that we're on here. No, to your point, I don't know. I don't know why that's top of mind tonight, but I guess it's just funny. Anyway, congratulations, Bill has won this season before the last 2 weeks of the year. Maybe we'll do some prop bets to try to help me make some ground up. No. But I mean, I've got like 14 games to make.
It's not fair. We're not changing the rules now.
It's my show. I do what I want.
Wrong again, Ryan.
I do what I want, Bill. All right. Only 2 games to pick from this week. First up, the NFC Championship game. The 6th seed Washington Commanders travel out to Philadelphia to take on the 2-seed Eagles. The Eagles are a 6-point home favorite in this NFC East showdown. The winner of this game plays in the Super Bowl. It is a 3:00 kickoff over on Fox. Bill, he got Philly a 6-point home favorite against the Commanders.
Dude, do you love this game? Is this weird that we have 2 NFC East teams playing for the conference championship? This is weird.
Should be the
as good as the NFC North was this year, and you have 2 NFC East teams playing for the championship. It's weird.
Yeah.
This one's tough, man. I don't like this one at all. Because I feel like this is a home and home situation. Commanders obviously beat the Eagles late in the season when the Eagles played at Washington. But at the beginning, I think it was toward the beginning of the season, the Eagles won this game by 8. And I have to say, I think they do it again.
Yeah.
So give me the Eagles. I like Saquon. I'm really excited to watch Saquon. Man, that guy is fast. I like really fast running backs. So when you see him get into the open, you're like, ooh, this is just going to be fun to watch him run. And that's what he does. And you watch all these defenders like, oh, no, and they can't keep up with him.
Pedro says he loved this game. Go Birds. Listen, if Saquon had stayed in New York, New York had the opportunity to absolutely squander the potential for Saquon Barkley, in fairness, the Detroit Lions did for Barry Sanders for much of his career.
He still was pretty
He still
good.
Did what he did, but again, I always make the argument. Swap Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders, and Barry Sanders owns every single record in the NFL from a running back.
To be fair, he should still be, because he retired early. He should still be the all-time leader in rushing yards, but he retired not to take Walter's records, which is totally honorable, right?
Meanwhile, Emmitt Smith played until he was like 45 with the Cardinals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pedro also said, don't forget Jalen Hurts left early in the second game against the Commanders. So he plays an entire game here. I think they boat race the Commanders. I think the Commanders got the Lions on the worst possible game that the Lions played all season, and the injuries caught up, and they just couldn't do it. So give me the Eagles to win big. The AFC Championship game takes place at 6:30 Sunday night over on CBS as the 2-seed Buffalo Bills take on the 1-seed Kansas City Chiefs. Normally, you get about 3 points to be a home to get the home field advantage from Vegas. Kansas City is a 2-point favorite in this game. Real quick, Andrew McClellan comes back in and says Chiefs and Eagles. That's his pick for the Super Bowl. I have a hard time disagreeing with that. My heart says Buffalo, My head says Kansas City. Give me Kansas City to win this game and to get a rematch from 3 years ago with the Eagles and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Bill, what say you? Bills at Chiefs.
I hate this game. Man, I am rooting so hard for the Buffalo Bills at this point. And you see this logo right here? I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say that. That logo.
I'm with you.
I hate this game.
Yep.
I don't. What 2? It's 2. It's 2. I don't think the Chiefs can lose this game. I just don't. I think Buffalo's in Miami's head just the same way that Kansas City's in Josh Allen's head.
Yeah, I mean, they won in the regular season, but it's the postseason. We know it's about to go down. Yeah, give me yeah. We're both going.
I am rooting for Buffalo to win the Super Bowl at this point. I really am. I want the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl just to get it over with.
Pedro says, will Bill root for the NFC? Nope, he just said he's going to root for
only
Buffalo.
If it's the Giants. I will only root for the Giants pretty much all the like.
I hate to say this because I wish as a Lions fan, I don't want Washington to win because they beat us. I don't want Kansas City to win because I'm tired of the Chiefs. I'm tired of Mahomes. I'm tired of the treatment. I really hate the Eagles. Like, I hate their fans. I hate their stadium.
I like Saquon though. I mean, I like some of their players.
I like Saquon, but their players are fine, but the fans don't deserve it. The fans don't deserve this treatment. Andrew says Allen is going to have to play to win like the regular season win. I agree. If it comes down to it, I would root for Washington over an AFC team. But if we get Eagles and Chiefs, like, I'm borderline don't even want to watch the game. If we get Eagles Bills, I'll root for the Bills. If we get Commanders versus either of these teams, I guess I got to root for the Commanders. Andrew comes back in and says, going to come down in the last 2 minutes. I don't disagree with it. This is going to be this is going to be a fun weekend. This is for all the marbles. This is a shot at the Super Bowl. Pedro says the Johns do be wild. I'm guessing he's talking about those fans up in Philadelphia.
Yeah, my boss is a Philly fan, so I'll hear about it if they do well. But
I want them. I wish they could lose twice in this game.
Wow.
I really can't.
I wish the Chiefs could lose twice in this game. I'm tired. I'm chiefed out. I think I've rooted for them in the past and wanted them to win games. I'm chiefed out, man. I feel like I'm tired of hearing about the bad calls. I'm tired of watching the replays of the bad calls and just shaking my head going, wow, this really is a thing. I'm tired of the guy that gets their to officiate their game, the head referee or whatever, their games. The Chiefs have never lost when he's the head referee and they get him in the playoffs. Like, come on. Like, what is it? Come on. This is ridiculous.
The last thing I want to see is Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift and retire from football at the end of the Super Bowl after they repeat in 2 weeks. So, yeah. I don't want the Chiefs to win. All right, Bill. This might be the quickest show we've ever had.
Maybe, yeah.
Bill, it's overtime. You got anything to add before we? Pedro wants to know real quick. Who do I dislike most? The Eagles or the Chiefs? The Eagles. I dislike the Eagles more than I dislike the Chiefs. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I don't care either way.
Yeah. You want to add anything before we sign off tonight, Bill?
For those of you that were around last week when I announced that I was running 24 hours in the 24 hours of virtual Daytona. That did not go well. It rained a lot, and racing in fake rain is really, really hard and wore me out. So, yeah, I think we didn't do well. We were doing okay for a while until I ended up in the rain.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. Enjoy football this weekend, I guess. I think the Gamecocks play basketball tonight. I don't know. Who
would care?
We're getting close to. See, this is what I'm talking about, Bill. Like, if we could be good and you would crap on it because I mentioned Gamecock sports.
Well, my point is, who would care because they're terrible?
That's fair. All right, so I really got nothing, man.
Yes, I just want to point out, Ryan, the Gamecocks did play in basketball tonight. And
don't tell me the score.
They lost to the Gators.
No way. How bad was the score?
By one. 70-69.
South Carolina has lost like all of their games to really good teams. Like lately, like they lost to Vandy by 3. They lost to They kept it close with, I think, Alabama or Auburn, one or the other, but I think Auburn broke away. Of course, we lose to Florida by 1, and Florida's the number 5 team in the country. Like, it's just that we were really good last year, and we just can't get over the hump this year. It's cyclical. Pedro says, "Go Birds! See you next week, fellas." Yep. I gotta talk to somebody about getting a wrestling show. We are, I think, a week away from the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is next weekend, so I might try to see if I can get someone to come preview the Royal Rumble with me on this show sometime next week. As they're telling me that Instagram timed out, which is fine. Let's see. Trey Toll says we were up by 13 with 12 minutes left and blew it. Awesome. Well, I'm glad I came on the show instead of sticking around to watch that basketball game. We will be doing a wrestling show either before or after the Royal Rumble. We are coming up to WrestleMania. Like, we are in WrestleMania season now. Some big news was broken last week with TNA, Total Nonstop Action, another wrestling company, partnering with WWE to create some crossover opportunities. And if you're a wrestling fan, you know how absolutely crazy that is. If you're like Bill and you don't know what I'm talking about, I can explain it to you off the air. But really good stuff. He who shall not be named wins the Rumble. No, he doesn't. It's a guy that you cannot see is going to win the Royal Rumble.
Is this going to be on Peacock or anything like that?
Yes, it will be. We should watch it. We should watch it together.
When is this?
Next Saturday. Hold on. I think I might be out of town that weekend.
Oh, good. Thank God.
Eat crap, Bill. All right. Let's get out of
here. Actually, no. Did I watch that one last time?
Yeah. I told you it's my favorite pay-per-view of the year. Anyway,
Logan Paul's I might watch that. Just remind me, and I'll turn it on.
Well, Logan Paul's going to Monday Night Raw, so you can start watching Raw on Mondays and on Netflix, and he'll be back. All right.
He's a really good faker.
Yeah, he's a really good faker. That's right.
Good.
All right. So thank you for wherever you watched the show tonight, and if you were involved in the chat, whether you were on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. If you weren't on Facebook, we are at facebook.com/tapoutsandtouchdowns. Make sure you follow and like the page there. If you were watching anywhere else and you want to go to X and follow me there, I'm at Tapouts and TDs on X. And then YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to the page at Tapouts and Touchdowns. And then again, we were live on Instagram. Didn't get a whole lot of action there, but I'm at Ryan Frick Comedy on Instagram. So give us a follow there. We have like 2 more shows before the end of football season. After football season, we're going to take a little break from the football shows. So I may still come on and do some live wrestling shows to get us ready for WrestleMania. But we're going to take a little break leading up to the start of the UFL season that starts at the end of March. And then we might sort of kind of sporadically come in and talk UFL. And then obviously draft season comes up and we got some stuff to do there. But we're going to get really heavy into wrestling, hopefully in the next couple of weeks as we head towards WrestleMania. And we've got 2 more football shows coming. So come back and join us next week and talk Pro Bowl and off-season moves and more coaching changes that Bill doesn't care about. So come join us next week. For Banker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Rye. We'll see you next time right here on Tap Outs and Touchdowns.